August 22nd at 7:02 p.m. Tonight we are in committee meetings. We will have 3 of our committees meeting, and what's a little bit different this time is you'll notice on the agenda we're trying to be more specific. And so on the committees there are no miscellaneous items. We have tried to identify all the items about which we'll be speaking. Committee meeting nights are also a little bit different from our regular sessions of council where we read ordinances. On those regular sessions of council, we have an opportunity at the end of the meeting for citizens to speak about other items not on the agenda. That is not the case tonight. So we don't have that communications opportunity for citizens to speak during our council meeting tonight unless they're addressing specific council committee agendas that have been listed. And then I also wanted to make a point that we will not be meeting next week. We meet regularly first and third, second and fourth Mondays. Next Monday is the 5th Monday. And so the following council meeting will be in September, immediately after Labor Day. So that will be Tuesday, September 6th. And the one other thing that I would like to make a public notice about is that council will be meeting with the Ohio University president and some of his staff at a luncheon that is usually held 2 times a year, and that will happen on Friday, September 9th at noon at the OU Inn. So just so that the public announcement has been made of that meeting. So we'll proceed first with our City and Safety Services Committee, and the chair of that is Councilmember Kent Butler.
Thank you, President Nisley. Good evening. This evening for City Service and Safety Committee, we begin with a presentation from our police chief, who is here to speak with us about a couple of issues, but first discussing supplemental police services. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Council, for having me here. I had originally asked the Mayor and the Service Safety Director to bring forward a contract provided to me by Ohio University Police Chief Andrew Powers, changing the payment relationship between the university and the City Police Department for services that our department rendered to Ohio University upon their request for special events such as football games, basketball games. Up until this point in time, that payment relationship has always been done in a special duty or off-duty capacity with the FOP union, and the payments the university made for those services were paid directly to the officers like we do with other special duty details. And about 2 years ago, Chief Powers had mentioned that the university wished to change that payment relationship, and they would seek to reimburse the city. Just about 2 weeks ago, maybe less, Chief Powers forwarded me the contract, said it was apologized for the last minute notice, but said that OU Finance had indicated that they could no longer continue the practice of hiring special duty officers and paying them through the FOP, that they had to formalize a relationship with the city. So I took that contract, which I had no problem with the contract. The language that was in it fairly represented the working relationship that we've had for 25 or 30 years with the University Police Department for those types of events. And I took it to the Service Safety Director, and they scheduled the hearing tonight and to discuss to bring it up here at Council. And then just this afternoon, after giving it some thought and consideration, I approached the Mayor and Service Safety Director again and asked them that we consider actually not entering into that agreement, that we simply provide the services to Ohio University Police Department as they have done for us the past 7 years that I'm aware of in helping the city to police special events such as the fests, Halloween, and things like that. And a conservative estimate from Chief Powers this morning when I first broached the topic with him, I asked him to conservatively estimate how many personnel hours his department had provided the Athens Police Department each year for the special events that we've made requests for assistance for through our MOU, long-standing MOU that goes back into the 70s. He said it's about 1,000 hours a year the University Police Department provides to the city of Athens. That's paid for by the University Police Department and Ohio University. The hours that we're talking about providing to a high university for special events such as football games, basketball games, occasional protest on campus, maybe help at a trustee meeting, that kind of thing, is more on the order of about 300 hours a year conservatively. So quite frankly, I think it's time that we adopt a working relationship that's more representative of the collaboration and cooperation between our two departments, and I just think it's time to provide to the university for our department, provide to the university what the University Police Department has been providing for the city of Athens for 7 or 8 years now. And so I think that actually can be accomplished by modifying the current Memorandum of Understanding, which is set to expire October 25th of this year. I'd like to see it renewed with much the same language that it currently exists for another 4 years. That would get us to October 25th, 2020. And I think simply by adding just a few clarifying words in 2 different sections, we basically would fairly represent what we're talking about as far as a working relationship and cooperation. So I actually had a discussion this afternoon with Chief Powers about it and pitched just these minor edits. He thought it was fine. He will have to have OU Legal look it over, as we would as well have to have the Law Director's Office look it over. But I think the plan is we would do that, have it vetted, and have it ready 2 weeks from tonight. Is that appropriate?
It's basically going to add language speaking to special events that will go into this as well, and keeping it as a strong MOU in terms of mutual aid within the city.
Yeah, specifically the language in 2 different sections talks about assistance from the university during major emergency events in the city, and assistance from the city during major emergency events at the university. And I think we would just simply change the language major emergency events to emergencies and or major events, and that would fairly describe everything that we've dealt with and would deal with coming in the future. So it's as simple as just adding a word and changing the sentence structure a little bit.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions or comments from council members? Councilmember Pappy.
Thank you. I would just ask that we, as council, be allowed to see the current MOU and then the one that you all revised with legal before we have the meeting and it's shown back to us. So we have some time to review it and think about it.
Thank you.
The draft that I shared with Chief Powers this evening is marked up so that you can, I'm not so savvy with Microsoft Word, but I know that right now I can click on a button and it shows the changes, and click on it and it reverts back to the old, so you can see it's very minor changes.
Councilmember McGee.
Thank you, Councilmember Butler. Chief, I'm trying to figure out, is this going to cost the city any more? I mean, that's the first question that I have. You had mentioned a difference between 1,000 hours where I believe you said OU officers come and assist the city, but those are usually OU kind of special events. If you're talking about Halloween and the fest, they're not sanctioned events, but they're put on by students for the main part.
Yeah, that is true. The Halloween event is certainly an Athens event. It's sanctioned by council, and it is for all intent and purpose an Athens event. The fests are not sanctioned events. I don't think they're Ohio University sanctioned events either. Either way, regardless of cause, what caused the need for the personnel, there is a need for personnel. We pay outside assistance for for those events. The university has never charged us a dime for those events. So yes, it is they do provide those services. Free gratis, I guess is how you'd say it. It will cost the city more. There's no doubt. It will cost the city about 300 hours of overtime.
And could you
total.
Put that into monetary terms?
Well, it'd be 300 times. Let's round it to $50 an hour. So what would that be? $15,000, $1,500? What would that be? I'm not great with math on the fly, and you're putting pressure on me, but it's $50 an hour times 300 hours, whatever that would be. $15,000. Thank you, Connor. And we're talking a 3 point, off the top of my head, $3.2 million payroll or $2.3 million payroll budget.
Right,
So $15,000 is small. Plus, I would simply say that the university is paying a lot more than that. They're paying on the order of $50,000 to help us police these events. So,
Let's not tell them.
Well, if I may, in addition, for Halloween and these major events, Ohio University not only offers their officers to assist us in this, they bring in their partners.
they do.
Like U Lancaster, and they don't charge us. And we've worked out also an agreement that we kind of share the costs in terms of feeding, manpower, rest area, things for those high events. So.
That's right. There's typically the 3 spring events that we heavily police now. The university provides food for all of the officers, including our staff, to at least one of those events. That's a major cost for them. It actually costs them a little more money than it does us because we're free to hire food contractors. They have to contract with the university for a certain amount of that food. So, it is more cost to the city. There's no doubt. And I want to be clear that neither Chief Powers nor the university asked for this. I was willing to. They simply wanted to change the payment relationship to reimburse the city. And I suggested to the mayor and Paula and to Andrew this afternoon that I just found it unnecessary. I thought what they were asking for represented the old way of doing things, and it simply was not representative of the true collaborative effort our 2 departments have, and that we'd like to foster going into the future. So, frankly, I think it's time. So.
We took the same metric and the same dollars and applied it to OU's 1,000 employee hours. We're talking $50,000 on Ohio University's side when it comes to events. And a good example to give you in terms of this mutual aid, I think this is important, is this past weekend, Friday night and Saturday night, within the city, we saw Mill Street swell to about an estimate of 10,000 individuals who were down there, which far surpasses what Millfest and Palmerfest and what those individually usually bring in terms of individuals, to where, to have mutual aid in that particular situation was much needed. It was.
Yeah, they sent us 4 officers of the 8 that they had on campus. They sent us 4, and they may have been more down there, but I personally saw and thanked 4 OU officers for coming to assist, and they were down there for an hour and a half. So they had 6 personnel hours just in Friday night assisting us from 9:30 to 11 p.m. And it was for something that was completely unplanned and unexpected, and we certainly needed their help Friday night, no doubt about it. And that happens constantly, where their officers are coming off campus. It's rare that our officers go on campus at their request for us. So it does happen, but it's certainly more common for them to come off campus to help us.
Thank you. Other comments from council members or the president? I too appreciate the perspective, and this weekend is a perfect example of where sometimes things will happen in a setting such as our community with social media. An event can pop up quite quickly and get communicated very rapidly and swell beyond expectations. And I appreciate that we have an MOU in place that allows us to collaborate and work together collectively for the safety and betterment of the community. And ultimately, that's what we're hoping to provide with our police services, to serve and to protect. I appreciate that, Chief. Any other comments? President Nisley.
Just to echo Councilmember Butler's and City Administration's comments that it does seem to work more in a coordinated way with a memorandum of understanding that we do have between the city and the university. And it's just one more way where we can show where we're working cooperatively together. So I think it's a good move.
Yeah, well, as this goes through, we'll go through the 3 readings to get this through, but we will, declare an emergency so that we can suspend the 30 days in order to enact this and get this going. But we'll get the information to you so you can see the edits. That's fine. The current language as it exists, and in the edits, which, as the chief was pointing out, are small, but you'll see them all the same.
And thank you, Mayor. I'm guessing that this discussion has been a segue into the second bullet point, which is the mutual aid, and looking at our MOU, which was initially enacted. Well, the chief offered some back history there, but our current legislative piece was initiated in 2012 and runs through October 25th, 2016. And in regards to that, the city agrees to a number of bullet points, the university agrees to a number of bullet points, and both parties agree to the following: contiguous borders and primary jurisdiction, investigations, other areas of mutual assistance, priority use, command and control. These are all concepts and thoughts that have been well thought out and determined by both chiefs, both parties, and it's been a number of years. The chief has been with our department, how many years now, sir?
Since 1989, whatever that adds up to be. 27 years, soon to be 28.
So there's a lot of history there of working collaboratively and collectively. And the newer system with our mayor meeting monthly with the president, as well as both chiefs meeting on a regular basis. We also have the other working group that the mayor was instrumental with. Remind me.
The Joint Police Advisory Council.
JPAC, correct, thank you. So thank you. So if you want to expand on that as well.
Well, the history of the MOU of the mutual aid agreement goes back. I have one in my office. It's a historical document. I believe it's from the 70s. It largely is intact compared to the one that we signed in 2012. There have been just a few, maybe some changes in language, but the intent has been the same for 40 plus years. And it essentially, for all intent and purposes, it provides jurisdictional authority to the university police, where otherwise they would only have jurisdiction on campus. At times when they need it or when we need them to have it, they have, by virtue of their reserve commissions, through the mutual aid agreement, jurisdiction anywhere in the city, which allows us to call on them and help us police on Mill Street if necessary, or any other event. And so, like I said, with very few changes, this has been in place for 40 plus years, and we actually, I think, are fairly regarded in university city settings for being a little advanced with our working relationship. There are other universities and municipalities that don't get along as well as we do, and there's a place coming, a jurisdiction coming next week. I'm not sure who. New Concord. Who heard Chief Powers and I speak at the Ohio Town Gown Association meeting and want to follow up because they're apparently impressed with what we do here in the city and between the city and the university police departments. So I'm happy about that, and I think that just extending this agreement another 4 years is again representative of those working relationships, and it's the right thing for both communities as far as I'm concerned.
Questions or comments, Council? So, Councilmember Pappy did request, if I'm paraphrasing, but we have our past MOU, which we could probably request to be put on our drive to look at, and then the request is for updates or some of the new language that the Chief is suggesting, which might help educate us and some of the newer members on Council to be up to speed. Mayor?
What we'll do is not unlike ordinances that are amended, that we'll just do a strike through and highlight the sections.
Thank you.
And again, as you mentioned, Member Butler, is that this MOU, this mutual aid agreement, does expire October 25th of 2016. So again, that's the reason for having the emergency clause, so that we don't have a break. We just keep this.
The clerk or president can remind me as well, when we have an emergency clause, it means that when it's signed into law, it becomes active immediately. Correct. Thank you. So there's no delay. Typically there's a delay, is it 30 days? when we sign legislation into law. So this enables it to happen immediately.
But we'll still have the 3 full readings.
Okay. Lastly, on our agenda this evening for City Safety Service Committee, we have the Washington County Jail contract. And again, I'm going to lean on the administration to help educate us on some of the history here and contents regarding this. Thank you.
This is it's a need for it's a contract basically with the Washington County Jail, and that is in case Southeastern Ohio Regional Jail is at capacity. We would in turn then have to transport or reach out to Washington County's jail. And that would be within this contract. I don't know if you all have a copy of the contract in front of you. We can get you that. But basically, within all the language within this contract, it would be $60 a day is the fee for someone being housed up at the Washington County Jail. And I believe that's not too dissimilar from what has been in the past.
Yes. And that's pretty standard. I mean, that's within a few dollars either way of other places. There are actually, off the top of my head, 4 or 5 jails that we could utilize. Of course, our primary prisoner holding facility is the regional jail. And that there are times that they run out of bed space, but particularly for females. And so when that happens, and it just happened recently, which prompted this, within the last 2 months, we arrested a female. The jail could not accept her. We called Washington County, which has been our overflow for the last number of years because it's one of the closer jail facilities, and they declined to accept the prisoner because we didn't have a contract. Now, in the past, they'd never required a contract, and we told them that, and they said, well, we're requiring one now. We called Middleport. Middleport is another overflow. They did not have space for us. We ended up transporting this female to Ross County over in Chillicothe. So you can imagine the time and the loss that we have holding that prisoner while we're trying to find a place and then driving her to Chillicothe and then the next morning going back and picking her up. So it's about 4 hours of lost personnel time for citizens of Athens to have to do these things. Washington County is a little closer, and sometimes, and I would imagine with the contract in place, sometimes if their deputies are available, they will meet us at the county borders. So it doesn't require us to go clear to Washington County. Sometimes they'll meet us, or to Marietta, which is where the jail is. Sometimes they'll meet us near Belpre, and which is much quicker for us. It's about 30 minutes. So much less lost time.
Thank you. Questions or comments from council? Councilmember Cochran.
Thank you, Member Butler. Chief Pyle, can you tell us how the cost compares from Washington County to the Southeastern Ohio Regional Jail?
I don't know the specifics. I asked the captain to vet this, and he simply responded that it's an average cost, $60 per day. It was within a few dollars of what all the other places charge. And you would think that this is traditional language, but Washington County right now is the only place that requires contract because we're for use as overflow. Now, if we for some reason went away from regional jail, we'd have to sign a contract with another entity. But for overflow, Washington County seems to be the only facility now that requires a contract for intermittent use.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe our auditor might be able to briefly address this as well, too, with her.
Member Butler just saw me nodding my head. Yes, $60, $65 is the average cost and has been for some time, actually.
Thank you, auditor. Councilmember McGee.
Thank you, Councilman Butler. Chief, this girl you mentioned, I was just kind of curious, was this like a dangerous person or was it a drunk? And the reason I ask that is simply because I hear from time to time about people being incarcerated for basically public intoxication, something like that. And I just wonder, are there any other options that the city could use rather than a jail procedure? I know in general, and I congratulate the police department when they make an effort to release somebody who's intoxicated to friends who are sober. I think that's a really good policy.
But we would do that just about every arrest that we can. It saves taxpayer money, and it saves the officers from transporting to the regional jail or other places. I don't know the particulars, but I know that I remember enough to know that this was a required incarceration. It was perhaps domestic violence, might have even been a felony domestic violence, but I don't remember off the top of my head the specific charge. But I know when I heard it, I didn't balk at it, and I didn't question it. It seemed pretty routine.
If I could just add to my question, I think sometimes I hear too how somebody is sent to jail because they're intoxicated and the officer has alleged either trying to flee a few feet or perhaps resisting in their intoxicated state. Again, I think Athens has a great policy, and I'm not being critical at all, that when you release them to friends or sober people, I know people are often arrested when they are making bad decisions initially, but then, after they realize that the game is up, they're confronted, they're handcuffed, they're dealing with the system at that point in time. I really sometimes question whether it's necessary to actually transport them to a jail if there are alternatives. And what I would suggest is, my question to you is basically, are there alternatives in Athens rather than sending someone to a different county, taking the time of the police officer to transport? I know in the past there were unusual holding spots, like at one point in time I believe they used the pool, the city pool, for instance. But would that be a possibility to explore some other options?
Over the years, we've tried a number of things, including treatment facilities offering, holding beds and things like that. Nothing's ever quite panned out. As far as the city goes, there's a presumption of liability if we allow an intoxicated person to go off without some kind of a safeguard. So the practice of releasing to a sober friend is pretty much just that. If we cannot find a sober friend, and that happens a lot, believe it or not, at 2, 3 in the morning, friends are calling everybody, relatives, friends, and just a lot of people just don't want to come or they're drunk themselves. If we can't find someone sober to release them to, then they do have to go to jail, because if we release them, when we initially arrested them for creating a condition which presents a risk of harm to themselves, and they're still in that intoxicated state, the city presumes an incredible liability by releasing them back to the public. Even if they're given time in the police department to kind of straighten up, which sometimes happens. Sometimes their state of intoxication gets worse because we catch them 5-10 minutes right after they have their last drink, and the absorption is still happening. So when we deal with them an hour later, they're actually drunker. People who are in a severe intoxicated state, we release to the squad, and they take them to Blenheim Hospital to sober up, but they have to be pretty much blacked out for that to happen. Otherwise, we do try to find them. Now, typically, and the drunk tank is what they call it colloquially at the jail, have for years, they have space for females who are just 6-hour holds for intoxication, thing like that. It's when they have to go into population, which is a separate part of the jail, and those are typically for the more severe crimes, felonious assault, domestic violence, that kind of thing. And that was the type of crime that this female had committed, or it was alleged to have committed, and so she couldn't just be held in an intoxication tank. She had to be put into population, and there was no bed space at the time, so that's why we had to find an alternative.
Member McGee, I understand your line of questioning, but at the end of the day, we still need to have a contract so that when needed, if the Southeastern Ohio Regional Jail is full, as the chief was just explaining, then we need to have somewhere to transport individuals to.
I'm just wondering if there's a better cost effective opportunity for some of the beds that are available. That's all.
Thank you. And this is somewhat to build on the direction that Councilmember McGee is going. But when I patrolled with OU during Halloween last year, I saw situations where they did come across, of course, a lot of intoxicated people, and it seemed like in those situations they were weighing that basically if they were going to book them, it was going to take them out of the game. They were going to be off the street with this person running them through the. Is that also that kind of decision has to be made almost every weekend where so it sounds like my guess is, just based on what I saw during Halloween, you're probably already exploring every avenue before they end up.
Well, during special events, we have temporary holding activated, a temporary booking plan. So during special events, we have basically a staging area where we'll take drunk people and stage them until we get a number of people ready to go, and then we actually municipal court hires regional jail officers to come down and work these events, and they basically process booking for us because they're the specialists at it. In the field, the officers have to make decisions as to basically efficiency. So, yes, there's a need for presence on the street. We have a limited number of resources. If all the officers are making arrests that may be handled in different ways other than arrest, for instance, a warning, a stern warning to go home with friends, that kind of thing, it increases our efficiency. But usually the rule of thumb is if a person is severely intoxicated and by themselves, then the risk of harm to themselves and for intervention, or the risk of harm is up and the chances for intervention to keep them safe are low. So those people typically get arrested. There are times that we ask, before we'll arrest, we'll say, is there anyone nearby that is sober that we can release? And we have to go through this. We don't release them to just anybody. We only release them to people that we can vet, who are sober, who they guarantee are friends, things like that. But there are times that we absolutely do have to arrest. But it's field triage is what it is, trying to maximize our resources and save taxpayer money. So. But it's really never, actually I shouldn't say that. Money is not the consideration. Money is the byproduct. Safety is the consideration at all times.
That's what I saw.
Yeah.
I would encourage anybody to, not even on Halloween, but to ride along and actually see how the system operates on a nightly basis. Thank you.
I believe we have thank you. We have another comment or question from Councilmember Pappy.
Would just say that, again, why the contract is so important and why Washington County is expecting the contract, because there are regulations and rules that they have to follow and procedures whenever someone is booked into their system. So it behooves the other facility to have such a contract in place to protect both sides and obviously the person who is booked in. So, makes sense.
Timeline on having this roll out. September 6th is the next, not committee, but regular session to start the ball rolling. We do have...
I think the normal process is fine. We've been this long without it, so, or
You're going to push really close to Halloween.
okay, well, we certainly could.
May I say we're going to push a little close to Halloween.
I think we can do the full 3 readings and go through that, but I would suggest putting an emergency clause in there for this as well, so that it's as soon as council decides, then it would go into effect immediately after, which would get us before Halloween.
I would just ask the auditor if he could possibly provide us with the stats for what the city pays out for the different jails and the contracts. I'd feel that would be appropriate.
I can do that.
Thank you.
I believe, unless there's any other questions or comments, President Isley, I believe I'm done with my committee. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the Transportation Committee, and that's chaired by Councilmember Pappy.
Thank you. The first item on our agenda tonight is Halloween. So, administration, and I noticed someone here in the audience as well, Mr. Thompson. How do we want to proceed?
We could start with Mr. Thompson.
Okay.
He wants to get up and speak to us about Halloween.
Sure.
Yep.
I'm assuming in past years, Mr. Thompson, we've had meetings, the Clean and Safe Halloween Committee, and I assume that's been meeting, and I know the last few years, we've asked that these meetings occur sooner rather than later in case there were questions on dates and whatnot. So, thank you.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely it makes it easier for us. I know last year we set the last 2 Halloweens in a row, so this year was already set last year, which was awesome for us. So, I didn't know I was going to be speaking today, so I didn't prepare anything, but I have my laptop, which has all my notes. We did meet, looks like that was June 27th. I met with the chief, and Paul, and everybody, and we talked about, for our end, I guess you just want me to speak about the committee. Everything will pretty much be the same for us. We'll have 2 stages, same locations generally, as long as they're approved and everything like that. Music's going to end at 12:30 this year instead of 1:15 and 1:30. So we'd really like to do the 10 o'clock closure on Carpenter again. I know last year, or years past, we always close the street at the same time, the whole street. We'd love to do that 10 o'clock from BP down, and then 1 o'clock for the rest of the street. It just makes it easier because we can start down by Courtside and then work our way back up the street. So,
in terms of cleanup?
No, setup.
Setup,
yeah, sorry. 10 a.m.
10 a.m.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, like I said, I wasn't prepared to speak tonight, but yeah, we'd love to do that. It just makes it much easier for us to start down there because that's a little heavier down there, and then work our way up to College Gate, and then but if we could do earlier than that, that'd even be even better. So.
Okay, and we're looking at the 29th?
Correct.
29th. So everything's out there in the press properly, the 29th. Well, we need to discuss the time of closure.
I heard what Brandon said, and we should probably try to support that in terms of the start. And the ending would ultimately remain the same. When we had our conversation, I want to say appreciate Brandon coming. Brandon and Jonathan Holmberg were there as well to understand and accept a shorter stage time by just that time, simply because the tear down takes so long. We're not going to reopen the street until our normal actions are, but this will allow the stage tear down to begin earlier and still milling. So I don't really feel you should amend the noise or the arresting of the noise ordinance.
Yeah. The noise ordinance, there's still going to be a large number of people up on Court Street. So
right, and sometimes parties go to buildings and different things. So.
Well, historically, in the last several years, we've tied the noise ordinance directly to the sound stages provided by a Clean and Safe Committee. So rather than suspend it for a geographical location, we actually started assigning it to the stages themselves as provided by the Clean and Safe Committee. So if there were 3 stages, the noise ordinance was lifted for those 3 stages, and so when they shut down, the noise ordinance would be back in effect because they were specifically for those activities at that stage. Correct?
I think I just spoke backwards then. Yes, the chief is correct. Because what happens, we would have a number of complaints coming in even after the stages had ended at 1:30, at 1:45, because someone had started up the house party or put their speakers out on Court Street and anything. Right. So, and that's, people really, believe it or not, do try to sleep at some point, even on Halloween.
Well, so. They've been hearing music for how many hours? So they're ready to, many people are. Member Butler?
Thank you. I did share prior to the meeting with the City Service Safety Director, and in all due respect to the administration, that I might see benefit in the later music time because I think it gives revelers and partygoers something to do. Now, I also admitted the caveat on that was that I haven't been uptown at that time period because I'm usually sound asleep, so I am not as informed as others. But to play devil's advocate, I could see the benefit in the past of having a later music time or dispersing of the music. So something to consider. I know the administration has thought about this and has discussed this as well with the Clean and Safe Committee, but
I'm going to let our chief speak elegantly to this.
Sure, thank you.
Why we even had this early meeting very, very early on in terms of June.
Yeah. My notion is that we've impacted the culture of the party scene in Athens over the last 3 or 4 years, specifically with the fests. We've been very successful in ending those events during daylight hours where anonymity is not an issue like it is during hours of darkness. When we sat back and analyzed the activities of Halloween and the run-up to peak activity hours, they are coinciding with the point of heavy intoxication, heavy consumption between, let's say, 12:30, 1, 2, 3 o'clock. It's when the shots were fired 2 years ago. It's when the majority of the fights and assaults are called in. That's when our arrests ramp up. And so my notion was, as you looked at the success we've had with the fests and ending them earlier, for instance, a perfect example of how that we've impacted that culture, we arrived at 9 o'clock Friday night and full staffing Friday night for opening weekend, and had essentially a fest-sized crowd on Mill Street and Stewart Street and Palmer Street, and those parties were all declared nuisance and shut down between 9:30 and 10:30. Instead of raging until 1, 2, 3 in the morning and bonfires in the street like we had 10 years ago. The students' response to our efforts, enforcement efforts, has been wonderful. I think we've successfully impacted the culture, and so my desire would be to see the Halloween event more representative of the culture we have with the party atmosphere. So if we end the activities a little earlier, the event would start a little earlier. We end it a little earlier, or at least don't keep the attraction for the uptown attraction, so people would start to filter home at that time. We have less people at town, less problems with the violence and the continued drinking and stuff. Now, I don't think that's going to, changing the band stage to end an hour early is not going to have a huge impact the first year or two, but that's just a baby step to see if is there potential that we could shift the Halloween event to even an earlier time, to where maybe the whole thing is over by midnight. I have no notion whatsoever that we would end this thing during the daytime hours. I mean, it's October 30th. Last weekend in October, it gets dark around 6 p.m. There's no way we're ending this at 6 p.m. But a reasonable hour instead of going until 2, 3 in the morning would be nice. And I think we could be successful with that, to be honest with you.
Well, and thank you, Chief, for the explanation and the rationale behind the decision making. I appreciate that, and I want revel goers to enjoy a safe and clean Halloween in Athens, and knowing that at least that we also have included an hour prior to, so it would still be the same length of time, is my understanding what you're suggesting.
That's right. That's fine. And I will tell you, Councilman, that exactly what you're describing, having something to do, was that was the plan, the strategy from 15 years ago. The bandstands, there used to be one bandstand, we asked for 2. They used to end a lot earlier, we asked them to be later. Vending, we wanted vending later because we wanted that food source and for people to have something to do instead of beating on each other, which is what they were doing. Halloween's changed significantly. 15 years ago, we had 30 assaults in a 2-hour period in the downtown area. Last year we had 5. So it's significantly different. And I think that this change kind of helps that. We're just following the culture of partying right now in the city, and I think that's where it's headed, and I think that's where we ought to head too.
So one of the things I'm hearing you say is the management strategies are paying off. In some respect, if we're reducing assaults and those kinds of things, and the nuisance party ordinance and all those issues are helping to make for a safer party, and that's ultimately what we want to see here in Athens.
Yeah,
I'm also thinking of staffing. When you've been out in the cold for, I know you people get relieved, but still, you're out there patrolling for a long time, dealing with this kind of thing.
Yes.
That I think from a safety perspective, everybody's patience is waning
right.
by the end of an evening of such. So I just think, and you and your colleague, Mr. Thompson, are happy with this?
Yeah, we met with the city and we talked. Wasn't excited about the email when it came down and said earlier Halloween at first, but we talked for a while and it makes sense.
Okay.
We don't want the party to go deep into the night. We know at the end of the night, because I'm there, I
right.
see it. It's
right.
It becomes somewhat scary sometimes,
right.
when it's that late and everything like that. So, and we do know it costs money, so it made sense, to kind of reduce. But, we talked about it. We wanted an earlier time, but the city was able to meet us halfway. So we're hoping there's not a huge impact. I mean, we don't know until it happens. That's one thing we're a little concerned about. I mean, it's an experiment, but we'll make it work. I mean, I don't think we'll start any earlier because we can't really attract more people any earlier than 6:30 right now. So we'll probably still do the Hunting for the Heart parade right at the beginning, and then have that because the kids like to come up and everything for that. So that'll be the start for the parade and everything like that. And Halloween will start from there. Both stages will end this year for the first time at the same time. We used to have a rolling 1:31 and 1:30, but we think we'll be fine because it'll be a little earlier.
So 12:30 is the ending time?
For everything, correct.
Okay. All right. Any Member Cochran?
Thank you, Member Pepe. I just wanted to contribute that when I told my daughter tonight that Halloween was on the agenda, she was very excited. Then she did a double take and said, does that mean the OU Halloween party uptown? And so I want to acknowledge my appreciation for the collaboration and the continued dialogue between the city and the Clean and Safe Committee. And I do appreciate this, small, earlier closing of the bandstand because I think it does contribute to a safer environment. And I think that that's really important for all of our children, whatever age they may be. It's in those wee hours of the night when the violence happens, oftentimes violence against women. We've all been hearing about our sexual assault numbers, and that's frightening to me as a community member and as a mother. And so anything that we can do to promote safety for our young people and for everyone who's going to be uptown that night is really important. So thank you for being willing to be flexible and adapt. And I think that, by making some changes like this, we can help keep everyone safe while they have a good time.
One other thing, so you would want the street closed beginning at 10 a.m., or you're asking?
If we could close Carpenter at 8, so our staging person comes in the night before and is ready to go at any time. I know Yuba has to make it work for everybody. Unfortunately, last year we were able to do half of the street, but 10 o'clock we just did 10 because that was earlier than normal. If we could do 8, like we do for Brew Week, that would be amazing. Because
so what you're saying is from Carpenter down to
correct.
West State, at least that block, you would like to start at 8.
We could come, because he would be set up at 8 o'clock and rolling, because what ends up happening is we have to tow some cars, because somebody parks their truck where the stage is going. We have to wait for the tow truck to show up, and that just pushes our timeline back. But we're always running very tight. I know 2 years ago we were behind because we had to get the barricade set up and everything like that, and so music started later, and it just pushed everything behind. So,
what do you think, administration, on the earlier time?
With the best that we have. What we were just discussing was what we utilize during construction. Sometimes, like Richland South, remember those painful years? Businesses are open, so even though people could still come up and patronize them, the parking will be alleviated. That's kind of so just park at our parking garage and walk down. I don't things like that.
Yeah, and this whole conversation, I've been thinking about the businesses because over the last couple of years, we've had many business owners come and say, "Oh, another day with people not coming downtown and patronizing, possibly."
And we're aware of that as well. So that's why we're here asking. We just want to make it work for everybody. We're just letting people know that we don't like to be late. I mean, we the money that we have becomes wasted if we're late with the stage and everything like that.
Right.
So if we can go a little bit earlier, that just saves us because then we can get everything set up and then we can relax. Because what happens right now with Halloween is we're stressed. I mean, the police are stressed. We're basically going from most stage setup is set up, take a break, take a shower or something, and then come back. Right now it's set up, manage the stage, tear down the stage, and then we're there till 3 or 4, something like that. So it would help us a lot. So.
Mayor?
Yeah, I just want to remind council, because I had to remind myself, that a lot of what we were hearing from the businesses had to do with an unfortunate timing of everything to where Ayuba's trick-or-treat fell before Halloween, which led to street closings and impact, and this year it'll likely be flipped. It will be flipped to where Uptown Ayuba trick-or-treating will come after the on the 29th, because the 31st is Monday. So to have uptown trick-or-treating take place. I also want to mention, because Brandon mentioned this, and the chief talked about baby steps, taking these baby steps to help with the environment on Court Street, that a community event, which started a few years back, which was Honey for the Heart, has a real calming effect too, which is interesting. It gives families a chance to come up and watch the bigger than life puppets and to be involved as well. And that, again, I think, and again, this is anecdotal and this is subjective, but I think that there's this interesting calming element to that. We see a lot more of the revelers who are there until 2 in the morning taking part in Honey for the Heart parade as well. So it's, I think that there's been a lot of change. I too have seen it for 18 years. And more recently, it's shifted quite a bit. So again, this slightly earlier stage closing and closing on both at the same time, I think, is a positive thing. We'll see how this all pans out on the 29th.
I'd like to add one thing, too, about the street closure, because one of the terrible things about the street closure is that nothing replaces it until the stages come up, which is late. I'm not going to set this up, but I'm going to put this on the record. If a fundraiser or group or somebody would like to do something on Court Street, when that street is closed from 1 to 5, contact the webpage. We'd love to have you. Let's do the world's largest beanbag toss or something. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not going to come up with it, but let's use that street, because it closes down. I understand the business's plight. The street's closed, and then they just watch down by Courtside being set up, and then you have nothing else going on. Let's do something. Honey from the Heart came out of Halloween. Why can't we do something? Bounty for the Bricks happens right there. We could do something between 1 o'clock and 5 o'clock, and that would include the community. I feel like that is a prime time. I just don't know what it is, but it's on the airwaves. You'll see it in the newspaper. Somebody will come up with it, but I really feel like that is something that come out, and they would ease that town gown thing that we have with Halloween. I'm a townie. I went to OU. I know there are people like myself who would love to just come up with their kids and hang out, see the parade, and then go home. They don't want to just come up for the parade.
What about having trick or treat then? Is it just not a safe? The street's closed. Ayuba, trick or treat. Are there too many early revelers?
Well, there's a couple complications come to mind. One is the parking garage, we actually sell parking during that weekend to offset, as you know, your improvements and just other costs of operating it. The other thing I could hear is some of the businesses uptown are catering directly to the, shall we say, adult Halloween activities. So I don't know if they'd welcome that, but we could ask Ayuba.
We could. I'm a little bit more sensitive to the parents that bring their children up there who may not want to do that during a big block party. I think that could really change people's perception of what they want to do on the day that they know is the big block party. They wouldn't come, or might not come.
There's something out there. Before I die, there will be something
and there,
in Halloween.
Maybe some university organizations. Yeah. Maybe there's something that they might want to
do a giant bake sale. Stuff like that. The space is there, is what I'm saying. So contact us, and then I'll bring it to you guys. And if it makes sense, then we'll do it.
Maybe we can set the Guinness Book of World Records for the most people cleaning Court Street.
There you go.
Honestly, that'd be pretty easy to do. The influx of people that come. Honestly, that is something that just came up in the last 5 minutes. If we give this a week or two, we could come up with something. I'm very serious about this, because every year I hear complaints. I'm not saying from here, but just complaints about, we have to do this with Halloween, and it's a drain. And we have this many people in town. Let's use it for good. We've seen what happens with Brew Week. It's a similar event. It's in the summer, but people are drinking and having a good time. Let's try and use the ideas we have there and bring that to Halloween, is what I'm saying. So.
I know Ayuba trick or treat is next, and as I continue to think through, I just think it's too much of a conflict to put the adults and the kiddies on the same day.
All right.
I do too.
Well, and maybe there are things that people can come up with. So I really appreciate the cooperation, the continued meeting, the earlier meetings to iron some of this stuff out, give people some time to sleep on it, think about it, working with all the proper entities, especially the police chief and his staff.
Every year has been better for us. This is my 3rd year on the committee. We've been just getting more and more communication. It makes our job easier. And so I thank you to everybody here, just the fact that we know the dates and everything like that. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from council? No? Administration?
Likely an emergency clause on this as well because of the timing of things. We'll get the 3 readings in, but to get the 30 days, we'll have to look at the calendar again to see. But
I'm tracking October 3rd for enactment on the 3rd, so yeah.
Okay.
So we'll look at that. We'll look at those
All right. Thank you.
dates and times.
Next item is the Ayuba trick or treat.
Same closings, the same things that have happened in the past. Again, this would be October 31st.
It's a Monday.
It's a Monday.
It's 5 to 7?
I believe that's right, 5 to 7 p.m.
And so we instituted a later closing down of parking last year.
We did.
And did that seem to help, I believe? I think that seemed to calm some of the business owners' concerns. I think it was a 4 o'clock bagging. Was it a 4 o'clock?
I believe it was
Or
a 2 o'clock
2
bagging,
o'clock
if
bagging.
I'm not mistaken.
But it had
And
signs.
And then we
to
closed.
be gone by 4.
We closed at 4. The street closing was at 4, and that was for businesses. But again,
So people can
I
park
think
till
it's a
4.
fine model that as we move forward. We can do it again because it worked last time. But there's not going to be the same impact on those businesses that really felt that they were being impacted last year because the Yuba Trick or Treat occurred before the big Halloween event on the Saturday. But we can still do it. I mean, it worked last time. There's no reason why we wouldn't do it again this year to minimize the street closure as well as the bag meters.
Just a reminder that we no longer alleviate the fees in the parking garage as we pay back our loan. So we're talking about parking for 2 hours.
So that's one of the ordinances. We don't put that in the ordinance anymore in terms
That's
of
right.
the free parking.
Right.
Member McGee?
Thank you, Member Kevin. When is the neighborhood street?
I'm glad you asked.
Thursday.
That's October 27th. Citywide trick-or-treating
Right.
is October 27th. It's a
Thursday.
Okay,
Beggars Night.
thank you.
Yep, it's 5 to 6 p.m.
6:30.
Or
Sorry.
6:30, sorry.
They were at the wrong
Yep.
thing.
I robbed him a half hour. So 5 to 6:30.
So again, I think going back to the Ayuba conversation, we had a lot of discussion about this last year. Again, we've planned. We made some tweaking, did some tweaking, and this year it seems a little bit, again, it is after, but
So you may still hear from individuals.
we may hear still.
Thank you.
But it's out there in the airwaves now. And I assume, Service Safety Director, I assume that the chamber came to you with the 31st, or whoever, Ayuba.
We pulled it out of our hat when we looked at the dates, so we will send that around and see if there's any change. But we thought that would have the appeal. So by the time we bring one forward, we'll have, sometimes the chamber will send an email vote kind of out, so they'll.
But it is the day of Halloween.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you.
We'll move on to Finance and Personnel Committee, and that's Councilmember Reisner who chairs that.
Thank you, Madam President. Just 2 items tonight. Bond rating process, and then we'll go to appropriations. I think everybody here on council knows, and people in the audience, that when the city has major projects that have to be financed, the city, like any other entity, goes out and borrows the money. Even though we have money coming in, we need a large amount of money to the contracts and so on. One of the things that is really important about that is we are essentially taking a loan, and of course the lending industry will charge us some rate of interest. And it's very important that the city has a good credit rating so that we can get the best possible interest rate over the extent of the loan, which is probably about 20 years. And when you're talking just a couple of points here and there, just fractions of a percent, of several $1 million over 20 years, that adds up to a great deal of money in terms of interest. So we want to find ways of ensuring that our credit rating is either improved or at least stays the same. So at the moment, the city has a very, very good, high-quality interest rate by the Moody's Corporation. We're a AA2 rating. I have a chart here, and we can make copies of it. But Athens is doing very well in that, and we're very proud of that. Most cities of our size, with our type of demographics and college towns and so on, do not have ratings this high. Now, as you know, we'll be coming up floating a bond issue at some point for a new swimming pool, and that's going to cost several $1 million. Around $7.5 million, whatever the figure will be. The last time we went out to for a large amount of money, we had this rating, a AA2, and we got a very good interest rate, and we've been making payments and so on. Unfortunately, at this point, the Moody's and other rating agencies have decided they want to re-examine our credit rating. We're going to have to go through a process of reestablishing why we are worthy of a good credit rating. There is a possibility, and I don't want to alarm anybody, that we could be downgraded. We could actually lose a couple of notches in terms of our rating. We could drop as low as an A1, which is a good quality, but it means we'll be paying more interest on any loans that we take out in the future. So it behooves us, the council, administration, auditor, and just about everybody else that has any interest in this at all, to ensure that our ratings stay good. Certainly that we don't lose ground. So what's happening is that the administration will have to go into negotiations with our credit rating agency, the Moody's Corporation, to essentially reestablish our credit rating, make it either keep it the same or make sure that we don't lose it. So I'd like for the auditor here, she's in our audience, since she's actually the person who will be spearheading this attempt. She's done it before. Very successfully last time, yes, and I have every confidence that you'll do it again.
Thank you for your vote of confidence, Member Reisner. You did an excellent job explaining this. We did have a meeting last Friday because I can't do this by myself, and we have to prepare what we have and then meet with representatives from Moody's, whether it's a conference call or actually going to an office in Chicago, and convince them that we are worthy of a lower credit rating. And so yes, we are, every time, the last time we did this bond issue was like 6 years ago. It would be nice if they would just take our last credit rating and leave it at that, but they don't. And things have changed. And so, as Member Reisner said, we are in a position of losing the rating that we had, dropping down a couple notches. Well, as you know, over 20 years' time, paying off $7 million, that's, 0.15% of interest rate really adds up. So the idea is to probably going to drop one notch, which would still keep us in, as Member Reisner said, a high-quality rating, rather than go into good quality. We still are in really good shape, and I will say, and I can tell you the reasons, some of the issues we have. Part of it is our cash reserve compared to last time, but that's probably a smaller part than some of the other things that they look at. It's a whole matrix of issues that they compare to see, whether you can handle this debt and what your credit rating should be. One of the big issues right now is the way they require us to post our pension liabilities, which are not truly our liability. We withhold money from all of our employees and send them to the pension funds, and they pay their portion to the pension funds. The liability for paying those pension payments when someone retires is on those pension funds. However, a GASB ruling came out, and we have to put those in as a liability in our audits, which nobody likes, and it doesn't really seem quite fair, but I think they wanted to reassure people if something were to happen that they would still get their pensions. As you know, in many years past, people did lose their pensions when mostly businesses would go under, but we aren't really in danger of losing that, but that's just the rule now. So that's one of our biggest drawdowns on our average rating. So yes, we just started on Friday working on this process, and Member Reisner, the administration came, and it was a long meeting, but we got a lot done, and we still have some to do to provide a nice booklet like we did last time to show them what our city's all about. So other than that, Member Reisner explained it pretty well. Besides this bond rating, and this needs to happen concurrently, is an ordinance by council that allows us to borrow this money. So there's no point in going through this bond rating if we're not going to do anything with that rating, because if we wait 6 months, they're going to want to check it again anyway. So our bond counsel, Dennis Schwally, many of you have met him, or at least heard me talk about him many times over the years, will prepare an ordinance to bring forward, hopefully on September 6th for council. And it will read something like what we did with the parking garage. For the parking garage, we took out a bond issue, but because of the amount, it was... can't remember what our bond consultant called it at the time, but he was able to go directly to lending institutions. This bond issue will be issued nationally, and it will be a call-in process with premiums and all kinds of other things that they use to decide how much your payments are going to be. So that will be our process, but we have to have council's permission in place to say that, yeah, we can borrow this money. So I expect that to start on September 6th. Any other questions about any of that?
So two things. So we can't control Moody's, but I assume that every other municipality is dealing with the pension issue.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
everybody is having to do that, and if they change the ruling, as you just mentioned, then every other municipality is in this kind of a situation because they all have pensions.
They are. That's if you look at this chart that they prepared for us. Those are our lowest marks, and it's just there's no way around that.
You can't get around that.
We can't cover that. Millions of dollars of liabilities that aren't truly ours that we have to show as a liability, and so so likely we're going to come down from AA2 to AA3. But if we can keep it at that, then we're still that far ahead. This also shows the difference in AA3 on a $7.3 million debt would be 2.5 compared to 2.67 if we drop to A1.
The other comment I wanted to make is I've not seen let's talk about what we're talking about, which is for the pool. As far as I know, council has not seen what this pool is going to cost. I mean, I've not seen anything from the consultants, and so, do we borrow $6 million or do we borrow $7.5 million? The borrowing has to do with the pool, correct?
It does, and I've been asking the same question for several weeks. Do we have an amount? Is it still 7.3? Don't know. However, when we did the one for the parking garage, we said up to $2 million. We knew it was going to be 1.8, 1.9. Now it's kind of gotten up to $2 million, but we would just have to pick a number that we think would cover it because I don't know where we are on that. I thought I would have heard. I was told I would hear like 2 weeks ago and haven't. So I don't know if it's dropped down to 6.3 or if it's more than 7.3 now.
So my concern is you mentioned September 6th. Is that when does the ordinance...
Starting that, yeah.
To be introduced in September.
So, that's only a few weeks from now. And So I'm
Well,
just
we'll have to have
asking for
administrations.
council to be informed, I guess, is
Right.
what I'm asking.
Yeah.
We're pretty much working with MSA Sport. Told them what the number is they need to keep under, which is the $7.3 million. We also, under the RFQ, towed the line on design engineering was $500,000 and no more. And with that, MSA Sport is looking at pool with construction at somewhere around the $6 million price point for the pool itself. That's what we're looking at with MSA Sport.
But the $6 million that former Mayor Rick Abel was at the meeting last Thursday, that 7.3 all is accounting for the interest and what have you. So I think we have that number. They can build us a good pool at this $6 million.
All I'm saying is council was not, there was a meeting. I understand you just mentioned there was a meeting, but I wasn't at that meeting. I don't know if any other council members were at that meeting, so we just don't have any information.
We are actually having a conference call again tomorrow as we tighten down things related to the pool and go into soil tests to see in terms of landing on a final location. And then we're targeting a September 26th presentation to City Council. So that will still, you would have two readings at that time, by the time that comes forward.
And timeline in terms of going before Moody's, whether we go to Chicago and present to them in person or we possibly Skype in with Moody's from here in Athens, which should be a cost savings in terms of travel. We're looking at September 29th, 28th, 29th, somewhere in that time frame. I do want to stress this too, because the auditor, I'm glad you brought that up, that likely we will drop down to AA3 because we're AA2 currently. But as I understand it in talking with Baird, that, a lot depends on all the pieces that we put into this puzzle in terms of showing what we've got going for us, things like comprehensive plan. Do you have a comprehensive plan? And to put that in there, a lot of cities our size do not have comprehensive plans. Well, we've had one for 13 years now. Other things such as they were unaware that the income tax is going on the ballot in November. And given they look at track records, they look at a number of different things. So there's a lot of positives that we have going forward to where, I think that we would do well with the auditor and I presenting before Moody's.
And we had this last time. We need to explain to them why our poverty rate is what it is in Athens. We have such a large number of students, young people, working for minimum wage. There just needs to be more explanation than what's going on. We will, of course, include a lot about Ohio University. We have a very stable revenue in Ohio University, and that's important also. Yes, they look at several things, all our policies. We wrote a debt and cash balance policy last time for that issue that was passed by council. We have an investment policy that they asked for. Policies and procedures in place they look at, and the community as a whole, and to paint our little community. We don't have a lot of industry. We don't have any, really. Athens Mold Machines coming online, but compared to a lot of other cities that have big factories, which brings in a lot more revenue, we have to show them what we do have and how we do bring in revenue, of course, with tourism in the area and things like that. So, yeah, like the mayor said, we have to paint a picture of our community and why we are stable and deserve this nice big loan.
Right. One of the things that Moody's unaware of is, but council, to include myself when I was on council, we were presented with the AEP4 report, which is Arts and Economic Prosperity, which in 2011 was showing tourism for arts alone was $24 million back in 2011. If you look at it, kind of plot that out, we're probably at the level of somewhere around $34 to $35 million annually at this point in time. And things like that are important for Moody's. And you mentioned Athens Mold and Machine. When we were talking with Baird said That's important to show 60 jobs that will be coming online over the course of the next 3 years, or give or take 3 years.
Of course, we'll share our presentation with you, but some of the other things, what they did before they came and they prepared a draft presentation, they just go online and look at our area and what we have. And I think he said that Hocking Hills is the #1 tourist destination in the state. And of course, we're the ones with all the hotels. So we do benefit by these activities out and around the city. Just things that we need to put out there and let people know.
Madam President.
I was wondering, like the arts, the economic impact of the arts, likewise Vice President for Finance Steve Golding from Ohio University and Provost came to present on the economic impact of the university on the community. So I'm wondering if we have the most current report of that we can include.
That would be good information to have.
I think.
Has access to that.
We did give Baird that report that was from last year. That was 2015's report, so that's in their hands, and they have that information.
They also have the OU master plan.
They do. So as you guys are starting to see, there's this interesting mosaic that's being put together of everything going on, because as the auditor was mentioning, Moody's is basing things on history, and that history can actually be somewhat dated. Don't hold me to this, but I believe that what Baird was telling us was 2014.
Right, those were the latest figures they had on a lot of things. So we're going to update a lot of that.
Thank you, Councilman Reisner. So it sounded like the last time we had a review like this was 6 years ago.
Yes.
Now, there's been a couple projects that we've had between that. I mean, the wastewater treatment plant, I assume we needed a bond for that.
Yes, but actually for those projects, we didn't. It wasn't a bond issue. We basically borrowed money from OWDA.
Okay.
And those are different types of issues, bond issues, and so we don't go through this process for those.
Okay.
That's up to OWDA to decide if we are worthy of their interest rate and to borrow that money. Same kind of thing though. You have to show what your revenue is going to be. Increase your rates to make sure you can cover those payments year after year, which they did. I know we went out at least 20 years on that, if not further, and increased our sewer rates right up front to keep up with that cost. But those are not, this is a general obligation debt that's paid for out of tax dollars, our income tax monies. OWDA loans, which we have several, if you look on our debt schedule, are based on our utilities collecting the amount of money necessary to make those payments.
So what I'm trying to understand is it sounds like then 6 years ago was the last time we did a bond?
Actually, technically, the parking garage was a bond. Okay. It was just a different type of issue because of the amount.
Okay. So then,
a bond is, what happens with a bond is if it's for 10 years or more. So sometimes we do these annual borrowings, say $500,000 from a local bank. If we don't pay that back within 10 years, then we have to convert that to a bond. Okay, so we can take a loan out up to 10 years. If it becomes 10 years or more, we're still paying it back, then it becomes a bond issue. In this case, we know we can't pay this back in 10 years. So we take a bond issue out to begin with, and then our rates are set for 10 years, for the first 10 years of that. What we did 6 years ago was refinanced our community center bond. That bond issue was for 16 years for the construction of the community center, but once we hit our 10-year mark, then we were allowed to reissue that. And so we went through this process, reissued the bond at a lower interest rate, and saved $350,000 for the next 6 years of the bond payments.
Okay, so so between the 6 years since we've been reviewed, we have had other projects that required a bond. Why now are they requesting that we go through this process again?
We haven't had. The only other, like I said, that was technically a bond, but not a bond issue like this.
Okay.
I don't know if I can explain to you very well, the process we would go through. every year we had a bond issue for the parking garage on East State Street years ago when I first came in. That we paid those off several years ago, and after a while we combined them when they got down to a certain amount. Every year we would have to make ourselves available. People would call from all over the country. It was advertised nationally. Who wants to take on this bond? What's the best rate? And then Dennis Schwally would go through. We had a list of information we took from them, such as premiums and coupons and things like that they would give us an amount on. And then Dennis would do the calculation and tell us which one would be the best to do. We have not had a bond like that since then, or since the parking garage, we were refinancing it, but it still was a parking garage bond. So, no. We haven't really. This is only the second time I've been in office 12 years.
So the auditor Heck, so the fact that this is a levy to pay back, does that help the bond rating? Because they know that that's a standard amount coming in every year for the most part.
Yes. That is exactly. It's what you call a general obligation tax issue, which is another thing we have to show them, that our income tax has been steady and increased steadily, which it has since 2004. After 2004, my first year in office, we went down in our tax revenue, but we've gone up ever since. And so that's important to show them that our trend is that we increase every year. That, of course, is helped by local circumstances, but we have to show them all of that. Just so that this is, it's a dedicated tax also, as opposed to just the 1.4% income tax that we have coming in. And so any money on that is absolutely dedicated to make this payment. That makes sense? As opposed to our general tax dollars that you can divide among street and rec and transportation and however you want in general fund. So that money is dedicated. It's just like the community center construction, and we have money left over in that. Those were good projections. Our tax revenue increase, so we've been able to pay that off pretty easily at this point. But all that money goes into that certain fund and can only be used for those purposes.
I want to follow up on what the auditor was mentioning. One of the things that has been put together and what we'll be presenting is with the income tax and it being steady, and through some of the more rough years, 2008, 2009, 2010, is that they listed it as being recession-proof, which is an interesting term, but it again is part of the matrix that we're putting together for Moody's.
Moody's in Chicago doesn't. They don't know little Athens, Ohio, so we have to show them what we're all about and that we're up to this challenge. Okay, so the ordinance from Dennis should be coming soon, and hopefully we'll get an amount. It sounds like they're sticking to their original amount anyway, and that's what we'll put in Dennis's ordinance. If it comes in under, great.
Madam President.
What's our deadline for working with Moody's and reporting back to them, or have they assigned that date?
Well, I'll be honest with you. Our consultant thinks that we would be smart. One of the reasons we're trying to push this and get started now, even though we're not quite sure about everything that the pool is going to involve, is that we do this before the election.
Okay.
So that we had to weigh that with the fact that we're putting an additional tax on, and if that passes, that makes us look even better.
Right.
However, federally, we don't know what the atmosphere will be with these bond issuers, so we decided to go with his recommendation and try to do this before the election. So that means the end of October we have to be done, 2 months from now.
Yeah, they did provide us with a draft timeline for hitting all our benchmarks, for as the auditor was mentioning, to get this all done before the election.
Can you make copies of that?
I can. Absolutely, I will.
Yeah. So So that could change, but it does give us an
Right.
idea of what we have to do, and we'll plug some dates in. We've got our next meeting set in September. I forget the date, but we'll provide more information that they asked for the other day. They'll put a new draft together, and we'll go over it, and we'll practice having different people talk about different things. It's probably an advantage that our mayor was connected to Ohio University for a long time and can speak to university issues, pluses and advantages to that being here. Of course, they always want the auditor in there to talk about the financial situation. And last time we included the treasurer and the deputy auditor last time, who was Ray, but he also had a broad knowledge of the city because he had worked in other areas in the city. So, we'll, depending on whether we go to Chicago to meet with them face-to-face, which is what our consultant is recommending, probably only a couple people would go for that. If we do a Skype or a conference call, we might include more people, although we don't want half a dozen people talking, but so that's something that we'll be working out.
Lots of practice.
Yes. Well, to sum everything up, I think it's extremely important that the city put its best foot forward on this to do whatever it takes to create a good impression with Moody's. Because
Thank you. I appreciate your support coming to the meeting, and that we should move with this. It really does make a difference, and any money that we can save and spend somewhere else, the better.
Right. Well, it'll also have impact on other times when we have to go out for another bond for something else. Don't forget we have a water treatment plant that's in need of repairs.
Yes. When we do other bonds, it's when we go out even just for a loans note for a year. They look at our record and everything else that's out there about us. Whether we have to do this presentation to get that loan is another thing. It's just like somebody who goes in and looks at your credit score and before they give you a car loan. They do their research, and so all of this information, we can keep a good credit rating, is taken into account.
Right. Well, I'm trying to be optimistic and say don't settle for anything less than what we already have. Don't settle for a notch lower.
That's what we did last time. Is we were trying to keep our AA2, so maybe we can just keep
well,
that
you did
attitude.
it. So you have a good track record on that.
We do. We do. And I think we're in just about as good a shape, except for the pension liabilities this time. However, our fund balances aren't quite what they were, and we might have to, look at that between now and then, see if there's anything we can free up and do to make that look a little better in the next couple months.
Right. Other questions on council? Okay. Next item, appropriations, plural. Who cares to speak about that?
I thought I'd just stay up here if that's okay.
That's fine. You're doing great.
We need two. One is for the medical service, the medical internal service fund. We have looked at that for our expenses, and we are asking for $500,000. Keeping in mind that we have $800,000 unappropriated. But our expenses are above the point in time. At this point, the end of August, we should be around 66-67%. And we're at, that's revenue. We're at 72 and 74% for our medical and our claims. The claims are the big amount. Our budget's $2.4 million. And so we need to appropriate more money, make sure we can make those payments through the end of the year. We've had a couple major claims that have been ongoing for the last year and a half. So, like I said, the money's there. We have $802,000 unappropriated, but we need it appropriated so we can pay those claims through the rest of the year. We really calculated we need about $400,000, but I'd like to ask for $500,000. I've had that happen before where I came and asked for what I thought we needed, and then I had to come back again. And it seems like a lot, but as I said, our expenses total budget in that fund is $3.5 million. So it's a big fund with a lot of expenses. So $500,000, but maybe put that in perspective with that information. I have one other one.
Okay.
The pumper truck payment. We have two fire trucks that we are paying on. The pumper truck payment is due in October 26th, I believe. And the ladder truck is due in December. We have almost paid back the ladder truck, but the pumper truck was a new loan for that. We owe $600,000, I think. And so we need to, and this one is with the Hocking Valley, where council can decide how much they want to pay down. And just to remind anybody, in case they don't remember, we get $50,000 a year from OU to help with that. So last year we paid $50,000 on each truck, 25 from OU, 25 from the city, and paid down $50,000 for each one. So I don't know if that's what you want to do this year.
How's the fund looking right now?
The general fund. It's actually our unappropriated balance is like $130,000 as of today. So what we're going to do though is we're going to go in and look at some of the appropriations. I think I mentioned this in regards to another department a week or two ago. Is that some of the supply lines seem a bit inflated, and so we'd like to go in and reduce those. And that will help our fund balance, our unappropriated balance, in the general fund. So, I think it's $136,000, which isn't a lot for the general fund. That covers like 11 departments, and that is where these payments come from. So I need council to decide how much they want to pay down on that, which would then be another ordinance from Dennis as we roll over the balance of that. The balance on that's $523,000, $525 with interest. However, the ladder truck's down to $100,400. So, yes. Yes, the pumper truck was almost $1 million, I believe.
Auditor, have we received the $50,000 from Ohio University for 2016?
I don't know. And I will find out. Sometimes they wait on those payments until the end of their fiscal year, which just happened, the end of June.
Does the administration have any comment about how much they want to put down on that?
I'd like to see what the some of the changes in the fund other balances funds may be, just so that we can review them for operating.
Right.
The bottom line is OU pays us that $50,000, and I feel, are obligated to then use that money to pay for these.
Correct.
So the least.
I have no problem spending OU's $50,000 for the trucks. It's, what will our share be? What can we afford out of $136,000 that we have right now?
Yeah.
I'd hate to take $50,000 out of that and drop it down to $80,000.
Well, you're going to need another payment in December for the other truck.
Yeah.
So, however, that also needs to start through in September so that it can be passed if you want 3 readings.
Right.
And then the rollover will happen in October.
Madam President?
I just wondered, I think, if I'm remembering right, we have gone lower than that, lower than 36 occasionally in our
yes,
unappropriated balance or the cash. So
yes.
Oh yeah.
In reality, this I think we actually already budgeted in the budget, put in $50,000 for that no payment. But I'll check on that too, which would mean no additional unappropriated as far as that goes. And the fund balance is actually fine in the general fund. So let me check on that and see if we've already appropriated a certain amount, then you'll know if that will affect that.
And then we can check on the $50,000 from Ohio University.
Yes.
And then from there.
The 3 readings looks good. There's no reason for suspension or no, please.
No, if we can start it in September, then we'll be
okay.
good.
That's great.
Okay.
Anything other?
No, that's it for me. Do you have anything for me?
Well, I have something here from probation director wanting to inform they have $3,978.20 unspent funds, and would like to know if they could get the appropriated to or from Fund 235 TC 600. So I'm assuming they have leftover money and they want to.
Is that where it is in the 600s?
That's
Oh, they want to appropriate
refund.
for
235 TC 600. Not quite 4,000.
Do they have to pay that money back? Is that why? Yeah.
That's all I have.
Okay.
So as far as I can see, I'm finished.
So our committee meetings are finished, and we will be meeting next on Tuesday, September 6th is our next council meeting. So we'll consider ourselves adjourned at 8:37 p.m. Thank you.